Hi there, and welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name is Patrick. I'll be your host. So today's video is build video 17A. There will be a 17B to cover the painting and finishing of what we're going to tackle in 17A. And what we're tackling in 17A is going to be the aft funnel structure. As you can see, I've already tackled this. We will be putting forth the little clips of my doing so. So that will consist of pages 32, 33, 34, and 35. Eventually, we want to get to, after the finishing in 17B, taking this and nailing it down to this deck in the hull. So for the most part, this is going to be a lot of kind of sped up videos with a little bit of music in the background or my droning voice in the background. Feel free to turn the volume off for that. And, we will stop at a couple different spots here where I encountered a little bit of trouble or where there's kind of a gotcha moment and you might want to pay attention. Also, finishing on this is going to follow a very similar path to the superstructure in that there will be many parts that we are not attaching at this time because I'd like to prime it and paint down the deck color first and then mask that off and then paint everything else so we don't have to mask around little bits and bobs sitting all over the place. Also, it will allow me to get the correct funnel colors on there, and there's a couple dishes here that we have to get put together and in place, and then the close-in weapon system right there that goes there also. That along with a ton of railings that we're going to paint and put on after we get this primed and the deck color down. So if you will, just sit back and watch me go to work on this. Okay, so I've gotten all of the parts for this first chunk right here. We're going to start with this photo etch because it uses super glue. So go ahead and get just a touch of super glue out there. And we'll start picking out some of these photo etch pieces. So we'll start with this right here. And I'll go ahead and get him in place. Okay, he's on there. Just all right, good. In place. So on to the next. I have to move some of these bigger pieces out. All right. So this one right here is photo etch D99, and it looked like pictures of the real thing. There is a curved pipe looking thing, and I think it's actually kind of a hoist that would go into brackets here that this is part of, and then the other two pieces are going to be a part of as well. But that cforces.org website that I've been using has pictures of what looks like a curved piece of pipe, like an L shape, but not a hard bend, curve right there. And it looks like it is one of the hoists that is out on deck. At least that's what I was able to make out of it. I could be wrong, could be right. There are people that have been following these videos that should be able to set me right. So this next one, there's two of these, is photo etch C4. Photo etches, These pieces are so tiny. And in the scheme of things, very, very fragile and breakable. So I'm going to get these on there first. And if I get them on there first, I'm setting them up so I can just rip and break them off at will as I put other things on. That was my attempt at humor. Alright, second one of those. But this is akin to the little antennas you might put on an airplane or on an armor model or something like that. Antennas or little protrusions or defensive guns on something like a B-29 or B-17. Just the tiniest little protrusions that are just like asking to be broken off as soon as you put them in place. Alright, so come on. Our medium CA here is not wanting to set as instantly as I would like for this tiny little part, which is odd. Usually the tinier the part, the quicker it sets up, because there's no weight to make it, there's no real mass for gravity to act on. Okay, so now that that's done, we can go ahead and get the rest of this stuff on. Pretty quick and easy, pretty cut and dry, just using some Tamiya Super Thin. So this is Q47. Almost blended in perfectly with the instructions there. It's in place. Alright, looks like we've got a Q20. Be careful. Q20 looks a lot like D35, but Q20 has got 3 dots in the top of it. And I know the instructions show that also for D35, but D35 on the actual sprue does not have those little bumps on, or those little dimples on it. So so get just a little bit of Tamiya Extra Thin. Get this off of my tweezers really quick because the Extra Thin just decided to flow. Alright, there we go. In place. So next up is K12. And sometimes after run-ins with Extra Thin, it's good practice just to switch out in tweezers. Alright, so K20, going right there on this little shelf or a little bump. Okay, cool. So it's on there. Alright, and then D35, D34. And what you'll notice is I'm getting all these teeny tiny parts on before I put this larger part on here, this Q30, because that's just going to provide another obstacle to get all this stuff on cleanly. So that would be my recommendation, is getting the little stuff in place first and then getting to the bigger stuff. At least for this particular sequence. And so D35, going in right there. Okay, and from what I've been able to determine, I think these are just lamps. There are enough of them on the ship, that's for sure. And then D34. These look like a part of a PA system, loudspeakers. So if you've been following any modeling websites or news or getting any newsletters or anything like that, you'll see that there is a very large update set for this kit by HS Models. A little too pricey for me right now. I think I saw it on pre-order for 500 and some. Maybe I think when I saw it was closer to 600, but that's a little expensive for me for a kit that is less than $200. Now, that is not by any means saying anyone shouldn't get it. If you can afford to get it, I bet there's an incredible amount of detail there. I've only seen the pictures, but it looks impressive. Very, very impressive. All I'm saying is I can't afford it. Alright, there we go. Nope, thought we were done. Let's see, I've just got to wait for it to set up. So, when everything is done, painting wise, this will be one of the things that I go in and detail paint with one of the Molotov chrome pens. So like I said, when I looked online, it looked like this was silvery, much like the bell up front. So I've got to wonder if this is just a, oh my gosh, if this is just another bell, just a different tone or different sound. So I guess we'll wait here for that to set up, and this will be the last part for this first step, and then I'll get stuff cut out for this right here to mount that in place. Okay, cool. It's right here. Notice I did not take care of these ejector pin marks here on the bottom, just for the main fact that when it's in place, those are going to be impossible to see. I mean, you're going to have something like a endoscope or something like that to be able to get up under there to actually see it. So I just figured it was kind of pointless. I'm going to go ahead and get some thin in there. Extra thin on there, sorry. We'll get this in place. As there's some wiggle room. Alright, so now that's in place. And I'll go back in there and hit that with some more extra thin. So the next time you see it, in about a second or two, you're going to see these parts go in. So I'll be right back. Next up is on page 32 here, the two supports that are plastic and the photo etch D69. D69 is going to easily be more challenging of these three parts going on here to support this platform. So we will go with it first. And for the sake of clarity for me, I'm going to move instructions out of the way. And we will go ahead and get started. I will do my best to make sure that this is in sight of the camera, but I can't promise anything because these little supports are definitely some of the more challenging parts. So what I'm going to do, one, I'm getting it in there, and then two, I'm going to go ahead and get each little leg end a little dab of CA on there, and now go in here and attempt to get this So that's the trick, is getting it into where those holes are. Once we get it where those little pinholes are on the piece, then we can let that set up a little bit and come back in with a little bit of CA. After this sets up, we'll bend this back a little bit, just barely. Take a toothpick with a little bit of CA and run it along there. The other alternative would be to use some thin CA with one of those very fine wicking straws attached to the tip of it. However, this one is pretty small. I don't think I'm going to need a lot on there to accomplish the job. So while that's doing its thing, I'm going to go ahead and get these pieces here cut out so we can get these pieces attached, these supports attached here to the bottom of this platform. So we'll go ahead and start with C23, which is going to be over here. And again, apologies if this is not 100% right there for you. Small parts sometimes make for having to get up there very close in order to see it. But with these, should be able to do is get them in place and then put glue down, or cement, or whatever you want to call it. So one of the challenges of this part also, though, is ensuring that you're not knocking off the previous photo etch. Actually, that went on way easier than what I was anticipating. So I'm going to count my blessings and move on to the next one. Get it in place, and then we will hit everything with the extra thin. Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. Now it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So I need some stronger pliers for tweezers. Okay. All right. It's in place with just a barely slight bend that I was able to get pushed out. A little bit of extra thin right around our connection points. Just a touch. Alright, so now we've gotten that done, I'm going to take this, bend this back a little bit, just a hair. just going to apply just a little bit of CA here. Yeah, I should be able to push this forward. I'm going to hold it there for a minute until it starts to do its thing. You can use accelerator here if that's your normal go-to, but this will do just fine. It's medium CA. It usually sets in about 15 to 20 seconds. So the alternative, and what I've used for a couple other of these supports, is just thin CA and one of those really thin little applicating straws, and it just wicks right in. So that bit is done. Okay, so we're on to this bit right here. For the most part, everything here is pretty cut and dry, pretty simple plastic parts, except for this one right here, Photo Etch D90. This right here, I would recommend extreme caution when putting together, and then just maybe little dots of CA glue at the corners where the different pieces connect through folding, and just be super careful because the brass, besides one already being super soft, is very flimsy, very flimsy, very thin. So, and you get one try, that's it. After that one try, it's done and over with. So again, exercise maximum caution here. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting this put into place, and then after that we'll go ahead, without really me doing a lot of talking, about getting the rest of these parts on. So I'll move instructions aside real quick and start to get some of this CA glue down. Alrighty. So an important thing to pay attention here is the angle at which this is going to go on, just to make sure you don't put it on upside down. And voila, it's in place. So while that does its thing, I'm going to go ahead and start picking out other pieces to get put in place. Not really a whole lot to it other than just making sure that you get the angles right on some of these. And some of them make up with an angle for the fact that this bulkhead is canted inward a little bit. So that's one of them. If there are little lockers and things like that, then you don't want adding to one angle with another angle and making it face almost completely down. So okay, and you can see a lot of this is just going to add some fantastic detail. Okay, so last bit for page 32 is right here. All of our parts, tiny parts, a couple photo etch screens. We'll go ahead and get started. It's one of those things where I really gotta watch where I put my fingers, because a lot of these photo etch parts will bend with barely a breath. Tiny little pieces. Really add a lot to the finished project, but they also really do their best to try and escape. So, luckily, so far I've only lost one part to a carpet monster. So for that, I'm pretty thankful. All right. And yeah, I'm sorry, that is my great big head getting in the way. And I'm trying to do my best to keep everything on camera. And another part that went to go Houdini on me. I'm going to put a little cement in there first. Luckily, these little camera pieces are pretty distinct looking, so it's fairly easy to find and pick out there on the floor. There we go, cool. I'm going to just pour these out now. Alright, so D1. One of those lovely hairs that come with owning pets. Am I right? Love the little monsters, but at the same time, they don't always make this hobby easy. How many times have I going about trying to paint something or finish something, especially an airplane. You're just about to put down a decal or a clear coat, and bam, right there, you notice a hair kind of hanging out there. Didn't see it before. Well, it's not like they tell you at pet stores when you get pets, they're like, hey, this animal will add a lot of character to your finished plastic models. Nope. I don't tell you that at all. That is something everyone gets to discover on their own. Who am I kidding though? I still love the little doubles. Alright, I'll go ahead and get this big pipe piece on there. One of the few remaining parts on the Q screw, or Q sprue. Alright. There we go. That looks pretty good so far. Okay, so we are into page 33, right? But before I go ahead and start loading this down with the details and everything like that on page 33, because it is in fact on that side, photo etch ladders, photo etch grading, photo etch ladder, more stuff that goes on the side there. One thing I'd like to get done first is put this into place. Why now? Because this doesn't actually come until step 34, I believe. Yeah, step 34 is when this goes on there. Because on all the references I checked, this right here is one smooth surface. There's no visible seam there at all. So I'd rather do that now and deal with that seam than have to worry about working around all the detail and stuff like that that we get put into there. So in order to give myself a little bit of adjustment room on this, I thinned out some walls here, front and back, and this right here, because originally this was sitting just a touch back a little bit, and still a seam that wouldn't have been a nice, smooth, single, flat plane. And that's what we're after. So I needed to give it a little bit of wiggle room so that I could adjust this forward a little bit, hold something flat up against it, just to make sure. So that'll be my next step before I start attaching detail here and on this side, is getting this put into place. Like I said, if you're doing this and you're going to try to follow these steps, I ended up shaving a little off of this locating plate right here, and then I shaved a little bit off the front, the back, and the sides as well, just to give us a little bit of wiggle room. And I say back, I mean these two posts right here, because these two little posts right here are what make contact back there. So that allows this to go back and forth just enough that I should be able to line it up and make that really flat, so that I can come back after it's glued in place with a sanding stick and carefully get that seam eliminated. So there's no reason for me to show you any of that on camera, because I have to put the cement in place, get this in place, and get this lined up properly, and then possibly just a touch of filler, just a little bit of sanding, but stuff we've already seen before on the hull, stuff we've already seen before with me attaching the superstructure to the hull. We don't need to see this part also. So I'll go ahead and do that off camera. When I come back, there won't be a seam there, there won't be a gap there, and we'll start adding detail back into this part. So It'll be a couple of seconds for you, but it'll be probably about a day for me. Okay, so we're back with that upper piece secured to that lower piece, and the plastic is blended between the parts so that it looks like one piece, one smooth surface or plane there on that very front edge of the entire structure. It doesn't look like two pieces any longer. And I didn't have to use any filler or anything like that. Just very careful sanding, very careful preparation, and then a couple applications of some Tamiya extra thin sanding, another application, a little bit more sanding. So finally I got that polished with a 1000 grit sanding sponge, and am pretty happy with the result. Now that looks like one part. So we are now on to the page 33, and on this page we're just applying a bunch more details, starting with some photo etch screens, and kind of go over various ventilation areas and stuff like that there on the side of this funnel structure. A couple of photo etch ladders also going into place. In the very first step, there's only one plastic piece being glued onto this structure, which is B35, and it just kind of goes into that little recess. Once that's finished up, I'm going to move on to adding some more detail around the area, stuff that generally everyone's already seen through the previous superstructure part, and then also through earlier stages on this video right there, where parts like D18, which are the cameras, or the life rings of D3, the fire hoses, stuff like that that's going on that we've already put into place plenty of times already. And a couple of large pieces, but you're also going to see that there's parts I'm not putting out on the deck, and again, that's just because for the most part I want to get everything on this primed, and then I want to get that deck color laid down, which is to me is XF53 neutral gray. Once I get it primed and I get that deck color applied, then I can mask that off, and I can paint the rest of the color, the XF12, to all the vertical surfaces, and then all the additional parts that are going to get glued down onto the deck afterwards. So a bit of this page here is just involving steps for things that I'm just going to completely leave off for now, and I'll paint separately on its own, probably on a glued painting stick, and then after we get that deck color painted and the masking pulled up, I can glue that stuff into place. And we'll get into that in the next video, which would be build video 17B. So some of the bits though that I did apply on this, you notice are life raft canisters. There's 6 of the canisters, and they double up on these racks. So there's 3 racks, 2 canisters apiece. I put the racks into place during this segment, but I'm going to leave the actual canisters off. I'm going to paint those separately as well. This is just to ensure that I get primer and paint on the racks in all of the different nooks and crannies. I don't miss any spots or anything like that by doing this, by keeping those canisters off. And then after that, we're going to move on to putting some more fire hoses on there, some more photo etch ladders. Once all that stuff's on, then we'll move on to the next page, 34. Okay, now we move on to the very last step and diagram there on page 33. And like I said, a lot of this is just stuff that we've already put on in plenty throughout the superstructure piece and even earlier on in this piece. A lot of the little D34s, again, you know, tiny little boxes look like they have lights. D13, D18, those cameras, a little bit more photo etch ladders, that kind of stuff. But one thing I'm happy to see is a lot of these little bits, the little odds and ends that really kind of adding detail and putting some life into this ship and into this project. A lot of that is finally starting to come to an end point where I'm not going to have to worry about putting any more of that on. I believe actually after this funnel structure, a lot of those tiny little pieces won't be needed any longer. I will actually end up with some extras, which is nice. Somewhere on the superstructure, I believe on the starboard side, in fact, I broke off one of the little cameras, so an extra D18 will be nice that I'll be able to repair that with actual original kit materials without having to fashion my own replacement. So that'll be nice. That'll be handy. Also, kind of a interesting point to this kit compared to previous Trumpeter or Hobby Boss kits where I haven't had any extras left over and was kind of left scratching my head on how to fix it through either resin 3D printing or just kind of scratch building through using some of the kit's plastic in the sprue or other pieces, or you know, a stroll through the spare pieces box that everyone ends up with adding to after every kit they've ever built. But so that'd be a nice thing to have these extra little pieces here. I'd say this is not going to be my last 1/200 scale ship, not by far. I've got a couple of World War II aircraft carriers. I've got a HMS Nelson, and eventually I'll be buying into Trumpeters 1/200, the Sullivans and the Fletcher, World War II fame. Additionally, we're going to come out with additional flights on the Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyers. So extra pieces like that will be nice. It'd definitely be handy. It'd be nice to have those and be able to add stuff like that if I'm missing pieces or I don't have any extras in later kits. You can see here adding some of these tiny little cameras. The photo etch ladders are going to be coming up here as well. But again, it'll be nice to get done with those D-sprues. I'll still be using the D-sprues in that there's where the little ship's boats come into play, and other things like looks like the decoy launchers and stuff like that use common parts on those sprues. But for the most part, those teeny tiny little parts, I'm happy and thankful that I'm not going to be using that, going through those anymore. But another point also is that this build is starting to come to a close. It's starting to come to the end here, which is, it's been a project. It's been a good project though, and a good eye opener here on 1/200 naval ships. So I'm happy I did it. So far, I'm very pleased with all the work I've put into this and the progress, and I've grown as a modeler. Tried out some new techniques here and there. The thing with the Vallejo Perfect Plastic Putty I'll take with me from here on out, knowing that I can tint that with other acrylic paints. That's very, very handy skill to have. Good thing to know. So I think our next video is going to be touching base on putting together those little satellite dishes that go on the back of those. I haven't gone through that in video in depth yet, so it'll be a short video. Maybe also group in there the last close-in weapon system construction, just so everyone can see that go together as well. But the second part of this video, or the second part of this chunk of the build, which is going to be build video 17B, is going to be this primed and painted and kind of wrapping this up and getting this finally put into place on the hull and the deck. So that'll be a good thing to be done with, and be able to move on to the railings. So I'm very happy that you sat through this video with me and watched my progress here. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, please leave that feedback for me. Be safe, happy modeling.